Hello, my name is Bob Ganzak. Welcome to MotivationU the Podcast. Welcome to MotivationU the Podcast, coming to you live from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill right here at Celebration Point inside the Coach's Podcast Room. And what a special day it is here today at Spurrier's. 1 year anniversary. Kicked off 1 year ago today, this incredible restaurant, museum, wonderful place to gather, meet other people, meet Gators, meet Knowles, meet Canes, whoever. It's always a good place to come together and enjoy some friendship and great food. With me today is an individual that I really enjoy working with, and that's Evan Miller. Evan, we'll get into everything you do, but welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me, Bob.
And I say welcome to the podcast. He's the guy that's usually on the other side of the camera. Has been on the other side of the camera, I think, for every one of my podcasts except for maybe
two or three. That sounds about right.
And so he's always right there, and he has done so many podcasts. This is his roost. He rules this roost. This is his room right here. This is his spot to be. So we're going to touch on some of the favorite podcasts that he's seen within this room and talk about some other things too, and some leadership techniques that you've observed in people and heard about and enjoyed. So welcome to our world on the other side of the camera.
4 years of doing video production, and this is actually my first time in front of the camera. So I'm very, very excited, actually.
You know that I like to do that.
Yes.
Comfort zone is not something that I like to let people swim in for too long.
No, and
I want to push you someplace.
that's one of the things that's stuck with me that you taught me. I mean, the rubber band concept of, if you're a rubber band like this and you just do something crazy and then you just never go back to that, that same circle. So every time you do something crazy, you just you get out of your zone a little bit more. And it's honestly changed my life. I'm not going to lie. It's I was very, I was in my shell and never wanted to get out of my comfort zone. And since then, I've actually ventured out and done stuff.
Remember that first talk you gave?
Yes. Vaguely. I don't remember exactly what it was on. I remember being incredibly anxious, and I think I tripped over all my words, and I was sweating and beet red, but I have no clue what I talked about, honestly, because I was just so focused about presenting myself properly, I guess.
And getting there. And you were amongst a lot of other people, so it was kind of intimidating from that standpoint of,
Yes.
some of the individuals you knew, some of them you didn't know, and, that's kind of tough. I sometimes find myself having a tougher time talking in front of people I know than crowds that I've never seen before. I don't know, there's something like a light switch that goes on and off inside of you,
Just not as comfortable because, you don't know what their opinions are going to be of you. And I mean, I'm a people pleaser, unfortunately. And, I want everyone to think so highly of me. And it's, it can hurt to think one person doesn't think highly of me.
Yeah.
But you can't control the opinions of others about yourself.
Yeah. One of the things that we talk about in the class too is when we're in those small groups talking to a smaller group, is we tend to find somebody that we connect with. Mm-hmm. So we want to talk to that one person. And if there's 4 or 5 other people in that group, you tend to turn them off by not engaging them with your eyes and your presence. And that's one of the tough things, that especially people that are people pleasers,
Yes.
that do that. It's amazing to me. What are some of the better shows that and I don't mean better shows from the standpoint of they do a real good job. The guests, somebody that was in here in this room, or when you used to do them over at the office at Campus USA on the other side of town. What are some of the better programs that you've seen that have enlightened you?
Well, most of my shows are sports related, as you know, and I'm not a big sports
No,
guy
you're
at
not.
all.
Yeah.
There is one show we do though. We actually do it upstairs in the championship room of advisors. It's called The Brain Factor. It's with Meridian Behavioral Healthcare. It has
Okay.
Joy Riddle and Laura Hawley on it, but they just go back and forth and explore different mental health subjects. We actually released an episode yesterday. It was on self-care in the workplace.
Wow.
About just making sure you are communicating effectively with your employees and being a receptible supervisor, but at the same time, making sure you're communicating with your supervisors and telling them what you need, and just making sure that your workplace is not just this awful place you want to go to every day. It's work can be fun, and that was very enlightening to me actually.
Meridian Health.
Meridian, yes. The podcast is The Brain Factor.
I've spoken to their group before in here in Gainesville. Their office at that time was out down like 301 or 441 or someplace.
Okay.
It used to be down there. This is probably 10 years ago, and that was a great experience. I enjoyed speaking with them. I spent a whole afternoon with them and their whole leadership team. That was awesome. I love the topic that they were talking about, is that at the workplace, and I've seen that in leadership, a big challenge. As a matter of fact, Evan, I was thinking about that on the way down here today,
Really?
and then you bring that up, and how we hire somebody because of their skill and talent that they have in a certain area, and then when they come in, we try to change them to something else. You hire a round peg and try to put them in a square hole, right?
Interesting.
And with no coaching and no refinement whatsoever, and that to me is one of those things that just grind. We do it in our personal lives too.
We do.
You meet somebody, you fall in love with them, you have this relationship, you enjoy everything about them, and then you get married and you go, well, now I'm going to change you,
Yeah, exactly.
And you don't tell them that. You just start doing that.
Yep. And you just start getting mad at them for little things they're doing, or upset, with the way that they're acting, but they've been acting that way the entire time.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that just gets me. We had and there's a right way to do things too. We had a gentleman who was a rock jock, and we wanted him to do news talk. And when we first approached him about it, he was like, no way. Well, what we did is we let him spend a couple of weeks with one of the best news talk personalities in the Southeast. And it wasn't just watching him on the air or being with him on the air. It was like seeing his show prep, where he got his ideas from, how he planned his week, how he planned his day, how he planned his month, how he planned his year. What was his follow-up? What were some of the questions he asked? The whole gamut. And when the person came out of that training, he was like, I want to do this, So we took a round peg and we wanted to put it in a square hole, but we refined it.
Exactly.
And then moved it.
You shaped it before you moved it.
Yeah, so many people don't do that.
It's important to remember the shaping part, and that, I don't know, you do need to invest in your employees and, continue to make sure that they are getting the education they need and continuing their education as well. And I feel like even sometimes, as time progresses, the circular hole that you're fitting in may change to a square hole.
Yep.
And you might have to, either shape yourself again or, get your employer to help shape you and to fit the hole that you're in again.
And it's not always the employer's problem.
Yes.
I mean, we do make that mistake. There are people that misrepresent themselves or they act in a certain way in order to obtain that position or that role, and then once they get into their role, they can't.
Yeah.
They can't do it. They fall back into their old skills. So, it's not always one way or the other. We were talking about the trickle down thought process earlier, and you said that you've seen that trickle down doesn't always work. Can you give me an example of that, of something where you've seen that in your world?
Well, when I was thinking about it, I was thinking more of like trickle down economics, I guess.
Okay.
And personally, for me, I mean, it was a few years ago. I had one employer who just was not very receptive and never really it seemed like the company was doing very, very well, but much didn't go to the workers. But then at the same time, the company didn't have money to invest in any upgrades or, anything else. So it's like, where's all this money going? And I don't know, to me, it just seemed that, maybe that person was hoarding a lot of it, and not, letting it flow down like, it's supposed to actually trickle down.
Right.
It was more of like an inverted pyramid where they have everything at the top and then it barely trickles down to the bottom.
That's a great analogy when you can see that picture. The mind works in pictures, Evan.
Yes.
You remember that. To see that. And, there's something about that in itself with the fact that, I want my employer to succeed and to really get better, do well for their family.
Of
if
course.
It's her family or his family, I want them to do well. I want them to really achieve, have the dreams and things that that they sweated and built their company on. Yet I also want some balance.
Yes.
I want balance. We try to. There are some individuals that try to control everything in their domain, and I see this with pet lovers. Boy, I jump all over the thing, right? Not pet lovers, but pet owners.
Yeah.
Where they claim to be pet lovers, but they're really just people that tolerate pets.
Yes.
You can tell the difference when somebody loves a pet and somebody tolerates a pet, right?
Just the way they talk to it,
Especially
honestly.
a dog, right?
Yes.
Just the actions and
Oh,
everything.
get off me, and
you
stuff like that.
know.
Oh, don't jump. Oh, get off me.
Right.
I thought you loved your dog, and it's like,
Yeah. And there's no warmth there. It's a real dog lover can see that when somebody else is just tolerating the pet. And in my estimation, the reason I bring this up is that when we look at that trickle down thing, you can really tell when somebody truly cares about keeping some balance. Where as you mentioned, there's never enough money to invest in infrastructure or what have you, and that's just always it gets me on that.
There's one employer I think who actually does that really well here in Gainesville. Because I follow a lot of I'm friends with a lot of the employees on Facebook. Meldon Law, actually, Jeffrey Meldon. I recently saw that they, and again I don't know any of the details, but they took a work trip basically to I believe Daytona Beach, either last weekend or the week before. And then a few months ago, they all went up to Georgia for this huge marketing convention, and they got to learn all these new tips and tricks about keeping clients and how to be effective. And he really is investing in his company and in all of his employees, honestly. And even with the Dale Carnegie course, I know he's put multiple, numerous of his employees actually through it.
That's. And I will leave here today at noon and go directly there.
Exactly.
So I get to do a lot of work with them also. Great example. Great example of making sure that everybody is, developing and giving the opportunity to grow themselves to where they want to be.
Exactly. Where they want to be, not where he wants them to go. Yep. That is a big point.
And when somebody develops to the point where they can go out and start their own band, Jeffrey loves music.
Oh,
when they get to start their own band, it's not like, well, I'm losing my lead guitarist. It's like, we'll put somebody into that role.
Exactly.
We want you to do the best. Go out there and be the best.
He sees it more of like I have helped to create this rather than
yes.
He's taking this away from me by going and doing this.
Yeah. My stepdaughter, Jordan, worked for them for a couple of years as an intern and just absolutely loved it, And when she graduated, she moved on with her life. Yet that foundation that he built will stay with her forever.
Literally forever.
Forever, which is just an amazing thing. We're here at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, their first anniversary. Wonderful to be inside this facility, inside the coach's podcast room. Visors upstairs, which Evan had mentioned. My guest today is Evan Miller. Evan is the producer, executive producer, the director, probably does some writing himself. And we got him on the other side of the camera today for the first time, thanks to Tammy Wynn. Tammy was our guest last week, our intern here who jumped in. And as soon as I mentioned it to Evan that, hey, let's put you on the podcast, she was like, cha-ching, I'll produce this. So
just had to give it back to me.
So we appreciate Tammy being here, drinking her coffee, and enjoying the day. So Evan, where did you start? Where did life begin for Evan Miller?
Life began in Panama City, Florida, in 1995.
The beach side or the city side?
The city side.
City side.
But I mean, we always went to the beach. Even with my red hair, I frequented the beach pretty often, honestly.
And when was that?
1995.
1995. Wow, that was
good year.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. I'm trying to think. My parents retired down there, I think, in 90 or 91.
Okay. To Panama City?
To Panama City.
Oh, very nice.
And then my sister moved there in like 93 or 94. So her kids would be like 11 years older than you.
Okay.
But they went to, is it Rutherford?
Rutherford High School.
Yes, that's where they graduated
Still
from.
around.
Yep. Yeah.
I went to Mosley. There's 4 or 5 high schools and I mean, Panama City is, there's Panama City here. There's a little tiny town, right up against it right here called Lynn Haven. And then there's Panama City Beach. I mean, they're all bordering each other. So there's, 4 or 5 high schools, technically it's like 3 towns, but in the area. And there's probably about 500 or 600 students in each high school. So it's a decently, somewhat large town for the most part.
Yeah. It's so horizontal because you can't go south.
No, there's nothing south. There's
south
water.
South is water.
You can go south by boat.
Yeah, and we start thinking, geographically, you start thinking, well, I want to go south. You don't. You go east and west.
Yeah.
But I hear so many people say, oh, we're going to go down to Destin. Over to Destin.
Over to Destin, yes.
It's kind of that way,
That was one of my pet peeves, not going to lie, growing up, was they would all say, oh, or people in Alabama, southern Alabama, would be like, oh, we're going to come up and see y'all. And it's like, you're coming down, technically, not going up.
Yeah.
Because, you have to come down, but,
Yeah, that was one of the things that my dad, when he was alive, it wasn't a frustration of his because he had a lot of friends who were from southern Alabama, South Alabama or Birmingham, a little bit more north. But they kind of used Panama City as their, like, they didn't take care of it. They just like used it as their vacation town and just bing in, bing out, And yeah, that's what built it. Of course, beautiful sandy beaches and everything else, but it had to be frustrating to grow up there.
It was terribly frustrating, actually, especially towards, I believe it was like 2012, 2013 in that area. the spring break just got completely out of hand there. I mean, there was a lot of violence on the beach, a lot of, just horrible stuff that I don't even want to talk about, honestly. And it took literally the city saying, okay, well, in the month of March, if your feet are on the sandy beach, you cannot consume alcohol.
Yeah.
They take people to jail every spring break now. I mean, not even a beer, nothing, if you're on the sandy beaches.
Spinnakers.
Club
La Vela,
nothing now, pretty much. Club La Vela's completely gone after Hurricane Michael. So I mean,
but those were the in places when
Club La Vela was like the biggest nightclub, I think, in like America. I mean, one of the biggest nightclubs in America, to my knowledge at least, especially during spring break. I mean, traffic there was so wild. You were literally bumper to bumper for hours sometimes. It was insane.
I just, when my parents first moved down there, I always enjoyed Thanksgiving because I would like to go visit them at that time. The weather wasn't great.
Yeah.
It wasn't great. I mean, it wasn't like the summer sandy beaches. I mean, you didn't go lay in the sun all the time.
Oh, no.
Yet, what I loved about it is the hotel rates were really cheap. I mean, I can remember when I first started going down there, the Holiday Inn, that's right on the beach, the big Holiday Inn. At Thanksgiving time, the rates were like $50. It was like, wow, cha-ching, I could do that. But you could go any place. It's like St. Augustine now. It's hard to drive anytime in St. Augustine. It's hard to drive anytime in Panama City Beach now. It's always tourist season.
Always tourist season now.
Do you go back?
Oh, I love going back.
Okay.
Especially now that we're like completely moved away and like, I mean, at least for the next 3 years, Gainesville is our home. Going back is definitely like, it's a weird feeling, don't get me wrong. But I enjoy it a lot more now that we're just visiting rather than living there.
So what are some of the differences that you see in Gainesville and Panama City as far as people and business are concerned?
It's very stagnant in Panama City. And I believe that's just because the industry there, their only industry is really tourism. So, I mean, if they don't have tourists, there's really nothing going on in the town. Here, it's a lot different. I mean, we have bioengineering and like biotech up in the north in Alachua. There's the school here, which brings in a ton of people in general, and it's just it's like a melting pot here. It just seemed very economically stagnant, and there wasn't much progress, it seemed, in Panama City, at least compared to here. And I even lived in Huntsville, Alabama, for about 6 months, and Huntsville, Alabama is very similar to Gainesville.
Yes, it is.
So it's and I loved Huntsville as well.
Well, in your world, I mean, you spend a lot of time producing programs. How did you get involved in that? How did you get involved in the technical end of marketing and video and
everything
podcasts?
That I do? In high school, I actually started with like a Photoshop class, pretty much, just digital design, little stuff like that. And I did a lot of photography and digital design and web development courses in high school. But I thought I wanted to go into the medical field. And then, after a couple years of just being like, I hate this school, like I don't want to go to school for this anymore, I went to my father-in-law, who owns an advertising agency down in Panama City, and was just like, hey, do you need any help? Like, I have some skills, I've done digital media stuff. And he started just training me. And I learned, more about developing websites, learned more about marketing, and would help out with political campaigns. And then I slowly wanted to do more videography, though, which is something they were, not as focused on at the time. And a church came to us, St. Dominic's Catholic Church in Panama City.
Yep.
They had a contract that they needed fulfilled and needed a video editor. And I ended up actually working for them full-time for 2 years.
Wow.
Following that.
That had to be interesting.
It was. It's not very often that a Catholic church has a production studio, and it was really like the only video production studio in Panama City, to my knowledge.
Wow.
And I learned, my former boss there, Kyle O'Connor, he taught me amazing things about cinematography, how to do all the video editing, podcasting, which is podcasting is really just broadcasting, honestly. I would send the church services down to the news station in basically the same manner that I send this to Facebook. We would also stream it to Facebook as well.
So what is it when you're in here in this room? What is it that you look for in a podcast? Like when you're working with the Meldons or you're working with Shane Matthews or any of the sports shows, from that chair over there, what are you looking at?
What am I looking at? A lot at once. You mean just from like a production standpoint?
Just from an eye standpoint. Because what you put out, of course, like it has my name on it, yet you're the person that's putting it out there. It's got your stamp on it.
It does.
Because
you're right.
I'm just talking. You're the one that is making it happen.
I feel like I had the easy side of the job. I'm not going to lie. Like, I mean, we need someone like you to be the talker or, the host. And luckily you come with all the ideas. And that's the way most of the shows are. I mean, especially with the sports ones. I mean, unfortunately, I don't have too much to contribute to those. But, as long as we have someone who is here able to talk about the things, we can usually get it running. From my point of view, though, the person needs to be able to carry a conversation by themselves.
Yeah.
You definitely do a fantastic job of that.
Well, thank you.
And if they have a guest on, that usually helps a lot too. If they can't, carry the whole show themselves, and then that also just gives a nice, some dialogue like we're doing now. But what I'm focusing on is actually more like making sure all the audio levels are still working and they're all consistent, and making sure the video looks okay. Watching the clock to make sure I'm not, late on breaks or anything. So I'm constantly monitoring like 5 or 6 different things at once.
And making sure that Tammy's doing what she should be doing at all times, right?
Exactly.
We're going to, about 3 minutes, we're going to go off to a break. When we come back from that, I want to tackle some thoughts on what your favorite shows have been.
Wonderful. Before
we go to break, though, I want to ask you one question. You had mentioned earlier about how the Dale Carnegie class changed your life. How has it improved what you do in that chair? What are the changes that have taken place? And you got about 2 minutes. Share with us.
Well, since taking the Dale Carnegie course, I feel like I'm just overall a more personable person.
Okay.
For lack of a better word. Before I would commonly just sit there and just I would do my own thing and not really talk to the guests and whatnot. Until I got comfortable with the host. And since then, I feel like I've done a complete 180. A random guest will come in and I greet them and we'll sit down and I'll be setting everything up and carry on a full conversation with them. I've definitely grown outside of my comfort zone like I talked about earlier. But another key portion is the living. Oh, and I, of course, just blanked.
Day-tight compartments?
Day-tight compartments, yeah. Yes. Day-tight compartments has really done a wonder for me.
So that stress side of it has really been helpful to you. You're not on edge.
Yes, because, you take everything at work and, okay, well, I cannot do anything about this. It's 10 p.m. at night. Put it in your little chest. Put the chest up on the shelf and worry about it tomorrow. Because if you can't fix anything about it right now, you're just causing yourself a disservice by worrying about it, and you're manufacturing agony.
Yeah, it's kind of like leaving a light on, a bright light on when you're trying to sleep.
Yes, exactly.
And that stress of what's going to happen tomorrow can be like that bright light that keeps you up all night.
And it will.
And it will. Insomnia. It's yet when you're able to do what you described just now, to put it in a little box, put it on the shelf, and leave it there. It's like turning the light out and going to sleep.
Exactly. You just, as long as you don't, do it too much, of course, and don't do it with everything in your life, and you do it at appropriate times, it's a very, very useful tool. And my stress levels have gone down tremendously since then.
Well, that is awesome. Okay, we'll be coming back to touch on that. And we do have, coming September 13th, another Dale Carnegie class coming to Gainesville, Hotel Indigo. You can go to jacksonville.dalecarnegie.com and sign up for that. Just find classes, find it, sign up, join us, please. We'll be right back. This is Motivation You, the podcast.
We still hear it. The sound of victory. The joy of being part of something great. And while things may not be the same right now, we haven't gone anywhere. If you bleed orange and blue, then Meldon Law is the firm for you.
Looking for more reasons to celebrate? We have them here at Celebration Point. Enjoy some of the newest additions to our already celebratory lineup, like Dave & Buster's, Les Macarons, and Prime and Pearl. There's always a reason to celebrate. Join us anytime for any occasion. Celebration Point, where Gators come to celebrate.
Welcome back to Motivation You, the podcast, here from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill at Celebration Point. Celebration Point growing so much.
They are.
I'm very happy for the team over there at Viking. I'm really excited about that. And I've got some friends at Scherer Construction who are some graduates of Dale Carnegie, and I'm glad to see them doing that. But this is growing immensely.
It's expanding very, very fast.
What is going where they put the new Wawa? Okay, across the street used to be another
gas station.
Gas station. They tore it down. What is going up there? Do you know?
I don't know what's going there, actually.
I see them doing a lot of busy bees working very much. It'll be interesting to find out what's going on there.
I'm interested to see the sports complex when it's done, because that sounds like just an incredible facility.
Yeah, that's...
They said there will be an entire indoor track field, or ring, I guess, and then they can take it and actually, I guess, turn it into basketball courts. They can turn it into a spring floor for gymnastics and cheerleading. I mean, it's a very, very versatile space.
That is going to be a lot of fun to watch as it
Draw
develops.
A lot of people to Celebration Point as well.
Yeah, Svein and his team are just absolutely, knocking it out of the park with this place. It's just a lot of fun to be around it. Evan can't see over his shoulder. They're starting to bring in balloons and different things for the celebration for the first birthday party here. And I'm watching them like, oh, here's more people coming in with more things. And we're in like a little cocoon here. Like
literally.
We'll call it a fishbowl. The
fishbowl.
I gotcha. Except for there's no water and there's a ceiling on it, but it feels like a fishbowl, and there's glass, but it's totally no sound, zero. I mean, it is just as quiet. You can
barely hear if you really, really listen. If someone out there is like talking kind of loudly, you can barely hear it, but it's not even. I don't think the mic picks it up or anything.
No, and it's just amazing when you start looking at this place. So we've been together now for like 30 some or nearly 40.
45 episodes, I believe. Is
this episode 45?
I think so. I'm 99% sure it is. 45.
So today is 45.
It's almost a year.
So, like, who was 45 in presidents?
Donald Trump.
So you're number 45.
I'm Donald Trump. That's me.
Yeah. So we've been together for 45 now
45.
of these podcasts, and we've had some really interesting people, and we have found out some like totally interesting things about the world and individuals and leadership. What are some of your favorites? Give me one of your favorites.
Two come to mind immediately, and it's Frank Suarez and Josh Vaughn.
What was it about Frank Suarez? Now, Frank Suarez works here at Celebration Point. Yep. He's in charge of security, and you see Frank around here driving around. He also had a little background with the Secret Service and building maintenance involved in that. Born in Cuba, came here as a younger man and just really living the American dream with a positive attitude is incredible.
One of the most positive attitudes of anyone I've met, honestly.
And what is it that you loved about that talk?
I didn't really know anything about him beforehand, other than he immigrated from Cuba, and that he did construction here. And then he comes in, and his whole story was honestly incredible. I mean, starting from a young age, working with his father, literally practically being a mechanic at I believe he said 6 or 7 years of age.
Yeah.
Learning how to fix all of these different engines and automotive stuff and all sorts of different types of things. That's incredible to me. I mean, he's gone through more than most of us probably ever will. And the fact that he can still put a smile on his face and every morning come to work and be a happy and positive person is inspirational.
Think of the amount of people that we have had on this show that were born in Cuba.
I think there were
Soli,
2,
Frank,
3,
Domingo.
I think there were 3.
Miapa?
Oh, yes, Peter was born in Cuba as well. That's correct. So, there were 4, I believe.
Which is kind of interesting.
Oh, yeah.
From that standpoint.
And there are at least 5 or 6 others that I know in Gainesville who are pretty popular. Elio Piedra, Patricia Meldon. Yeah. I don't know that she was from Cuba. I don't remember where 100% off the top of my head, though. But they are also, a lot of people have actually immigrated from Cuba and are now here in Gainesville.
And all of them had a different story.
Yes.
All of them had a different story, which I found very interesting. From that, Domingo was Domingo.
That was interesting.
Worked in the Secret Service. I mean, he was a Secret Service agent.
Yeah.
So, and that was really interesting. He stays in touch with me. I'll get a message from him probably about once a week. He'll send me a TED Talk or something that is just really interesting, and I want to have him back on just to dig deeper into that. You also mentioned Josh Vaughn.
Yes.
Share with the audience what Josh Vaughn, why you really enjoyed that program.
I've known Josh for a little over a year now, and because I see him every day pretty much here at Spurrier's. And, we've chatted a lot, and we got to know each other really, really quickly. And, just one of those things where you just kind of you click with some people. And but once I heard his story, I knew he did the Dale Carnegie course, got the highest award of achievement, which is amazing. But then he was on the show, and I added him on Facebook after that too. And just seeing all of his posts, every day he's posting, work harder, don't give up. He's very inspirational, always moving forward, always posting pictures of different books he's reading. And like you even said on his show, you expect people to be, maybe listening to music and whatnot, but he's walking around listening to audiobooks, leadership audiobooks at that, not fiction, fantasy, fun, but personal development and improvement. And And then learning from the background that he came from and how he got out of that was another very inspirational story.
I love Josh and his story. I mean, I agree with that 100%. You know, this being the first anniversary of Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, I remember who my guest was. This was my second. This program was my second show, I think.
Yep, it was.
And it was Glenn Miller and Coach Steve Spurrier, which was one of my favorites. The first show that I had was the week before was Scott James, Scott James Matheson, the mayor of Valdosta, who he and I worked together in the radio business for years, and just an individual that, I mean, I just totally admire. When you talk about small town mayors being put through the ringer, nobody should go through what Scott's had to go through. Just the election time and things that have happened since then. His character, his integrity is what many of us should hold as our barometer of where we need to be. And still people, just because of political beliefs or whatever, or who he ran for, you know, just drive me crazy.
You mentioned Steve Spurrier also. What was your favorite part of your interview with Steve Spurrier? Well,
there was a few things that day. First of all, Coach Bowden was on his deathbed, and Freddie Wiebe had asked me to ask him a couple of questions, and one of the questions was about Coach Bowden. And looking into, you know, I asked him before we went on the air, if you remember, I asked him before, is it okay to go in that direction? And he said yes. So I asked him about Coach Bowden, and I could see in his eyes, you know, that thought process. So that was something that will always dominate that interview. Yeah. But his love of life, the effervescence that he has about life, and his grandchildren and his children and his players, and that just like, I mean, you're sitting across the table or next to him at a table, and you're just like, wow. So that's what I probably remember the most about that, and his outlook on leadership. You know, it just that enthusiasm that he lives his life with.
He's an amazing leader. Yeah. That is like,
you get to see him often. You know, what are the things that like connect with you when you think of Coach?
His impeccable memory is the first thing that I noticed. I mean, he's well in his 70s and remembers things 50 years ago with like perfect detail. He'll recall game stats and, you know, how many yards someone ran from a game in 1994. So that's one of the main things. Is in his drive for fitness is also something that really inspired me.
Oh yes, definitely.
He's, like I said, in his 70s, but like one of the most fit men that I know. Honestly, he is, and he works very healthy
every day.
Every day.
And Freddie tells me when he's on the road, he schedules that in, and he doesn't miss.
He doesn't.
He doesn't miss. Can't say you did it every day unless you do it every day.
Do it every day, exactly. And he rides his bike, and he
too many times for me.
Oh yeah, and I've tried to incorporate that in my own life because I'm like, well, obviously there's a reason, you know, this man is living and still so healthy at this, you know, at the age he is, and you know, I want to now emulate that myself.
Yeah, that was a big part of that. Thank you for sharing that. I really, you know, forgot about that because, you know, when I was a little kid, I mean, I was like 11 when he was winning the Heisman Trophy.
Oh, wow.
And I was living in, you know, Detroit, Michigan, and I was a Steve Spurrier fan. And to be able to sit next to him and talk to him and interview him, I never would have thought that in 1966, you know, when I was, you know, falling in love with the Gators because of this guy, you know. We used to vacation in Clearwater Beach at Christmas time, and driving down through here, we'd go through Gainesville, of course, and just University of Florida was always clicked with me.
And I feel like I have a completely different appreciation for him than you do, because like I had never heard of Steve Spurrier until I moved to Gainesville and started working for Freddie.
You're not a sports fan.
Yeah. I said, literally, Freddie started talking about him, like, who's Steve Spurrier? And like they all just like their mouths dropped. They could not comprehend how I didn't know who this man was. And I mean, I'm not from Gainesville at all, and unless I had no like UF friends growing up. All of my family and friends were FSU fans.
And not a sports fan, not somebody that was in that realm.
Exactly. So I've had to now go back and learn all of his history, but I feel like that's given me a completely different appreciation. It's not one of like nostalgia or one of, it's not anything I can look back on. It's all new information, and I feel like I have a deeper appreciation for him because of that in some ways. I feel like nostalgia sometimes gets in the way of true feelings, and not a fan of nostalgia.
No, it was... And I didn't, I was very cognizant of that when I was talking with him, because I didn't want to go into that realm. I had a role to do. It wasn't about me. It was about him, and it was about the people that listen. And how can we share that leadership story with other people? I've had a few of I've loved all the shows, but I've had a few of the shows that just stick out more. Peter Inigo. What an awesome man.
He's cool.
Orlando Milan, who, is just when Orlando told me the story of Peter, like saying, come live at my house. And they just met in the airport. Here's another person coming from Cuba. Come live at my house. Let me help you get going. I'll give you a place to work and get your dreams on. That was wild.
It's a lot.
Oh, that was great and so I loved having Peter on.
I actually had forgotten about that until you just brought it up. So I'm glad you did, because Orlando was another person I should have included earlier. And I do a lot of work with him as well, and they have a fantastic facility at Aikido America.
Yes.
And love all of their staff there. Yes.
Talia's daughter.
They have a very good crew there and a good culture, and they do a lot of good stuff for all the children that they serve.
Mm-hmm. Amazing people that we get to meet here. Another one that I enjoyed was a friend of mine from the sports world was Bob Page. And the funny thing about that is Bob was the individual that replaced Howard Cosell on the radio. When Howard Cosell retired, Bob took over his role on that daily radio show out of New York. Okay. And Bob was he was around Detroit as a sportscaster when I was going to school there. And so I was really happy to get him onto this program. But the funny thing about that, if people don't know, and I'm sure Bob won't care me mentioning this, is he didn't know there was a video. So he had just kind of woke up and combed his hair or anything like that. Well, at least he has hair, right? So it was really a shocker when he said, am I on video with this? And I really enjoyed that from him. Stephanie Stuckey was another.
She was actually one that I was going to bring up shortly. That was very interesting.
One of the lines that she had, was that her dad, she is the CEO of Stuckey's, but an accomplished person. I mean, when she decided to take over the family company, it was like, why would you do that? You've had a political career, a law career, and now you're going to take over, the family business. And when she talked about her name being on that was important to her. But that line that she gave to us when she said, my dad told me that I couldn't even run a lemonade stand.
I remember her saying that.
And, the way that she's really, turned that company into
entirely turned it around. From the way it looks, at least, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it's I mean, to my understanding, they were, on the verge of possibly going out of business.
It seemed that way.
Yeah. And to my knowledge, they're doing pretty well now.
Revitalized it.
I mean, people always talk about Stuckey's now, and it's not something we had over in Panama City, but hopefully something I'll be able to visit now that we're over here on the East Coast.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see that, but it's always fun to see those people and their journey, and their journey to leadership. Give me another one that you enjoyed from our time, because I'm going to throw one back at you in a second.
Ooh. I'm drawing a blank, unfortunately. Matthew Thompson, actually, I think was the other one I was thinking of earlier.
Very much.
I've learned a lot from him.
Yep.
He's a very level-headed, very, very smart individual, and he's very, very good at what he does.
Attention to detail,
Oh,
too.
yes.
Ooh. I'll give you a story outside of class. I was talking to a good friend of mine, Bill Barnett, who Bill runs the World Financial Company out of the franchise in Jacksonville. And I want to get Bill on this program. You'll love him. He's an awesome guy. But I'm kind of talking out of school here, but his significant other, Laura Williams, does graduate assistant work with Matt. And she was mentioning to Bill, like, you should see his note taking. Like, he takes notes during the class that are just like so detailed. And that's one of the things I admire about him. It just, I've had he's worked with me 10, 12 classes now. Just amazing opportunity. And to watch him and Doreen Wiebe work together, those two are like yin and yang.
I was about to say that.
They work so well together in a Dale Carnegie class as graduate assistants. They're just talented people. So thank you for bringing up Matt. And Doreen was one I was going to bring up.
Okay.
Her story that she shared here, and just the courage that she had to come here and do this on video, and then to start her own.
She did. She did about 12 of them, actually. Had a little 12-week challenge, and I could tell she was very, very nervous, and it definitely was something to step over for sure. And she did it every single time and interviewed everyone very well, and,
I was on her program. It felt real comfortable. It felt really comfortable.
Very similar to this, honestly.
Yeah. Jose Raven, another individual. We've had him on twice. The Meldons. We've had them on a couple of times, and I loved the give and take when we had about the father-son. That was fun. The father-son leadership, partnership.
It was very interesting to learn about, actually.
Absolutely, and Nathan Whitaker was another individual that we had on, and we're going to have Nathan back with his dad to explore that a little bit more, of law partners working together in similar worlds. I love those concepts and stories.
Nathan was a player, I believe.
So
football player?
He played at Duke.
Oh, Duke. Okay.
When Coach was there, but
he
wasn't a star.
Okay.
He loves to play that. He makes a joke out of that. A lot. Yet, what his role was, he's an attorney, and then he was an executive for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he worked for Tampa for a number of years.
Very cool.
And just a fascinating man who again, another individual that I've connected with and stayed in touch with through social media and different things. But I would love to be a part of that. James Gadsby, who runs the Danny Werfel Foundation.
Yes.
Another great.
That was cool.
I'd love to get Danny on this show sometime.
Oh, Danny Werfel? That would be amazing, honestly.
Because I would love to pick his brain about, his different coaches that he's worked, played under.
And all of the stuff that just Desire Street Ministries does now. They're a fantastic charity, and I know Steve Spurrier has gone out multiple times for that, and yeah, He would be a very interesting individual, actually.
It would
We
be
actually have
fun.
his Heisman Trophy here, too.
Yes, so people should come visit
Exactly.
the museum here and see some of the great artifacts that are in there behind the glass.
There's a ton of them.
Freddie Wiebe, your boss.
Yes.
Another great guest that we had on here. If people ever get the opportunity to pick his brain about business, about life, starting his life in Ghana, coming here for the reasons that he did, and pivoting and shifting and moving and changing. I'll also say that one of my favorite guests was my son. I had my son on early on. We had him on via Zoom.
That was a very good one, actually.
Yeah, I'd love to have him come back on, and I'm going to see him this weekend. So we've had so many great people just to share their leadership journey. Tammy,
Exactly.
I hope she saw the Facebook post. Did she, through your Facebook?
She should have seen it. I think she did.
Let's talk about her like she's not here, right?
Incredible note taking, like you were talking about earlier. That's the first thing that I think of, honestly.
Yeah.
And fantastic organization skills to match. I mean, and maybe that's because those are two things that I struggle with. Maybe that's why they come to mind first. I'm not, I'm working on it, obviously, but I'm not the most organized person. And my notes, they come and go as, depending on how I'm feeling. But every day, Tammy would walk in here, and she would write down notes every single day about what we were talking about. Pages and pages and pages and pages. And that's diligence right there.
Yeah, as I said on that Facebook post, future leader, somebody that's going to be a star, already a star, is going to be a big star, down the road.
Entirely.
You just felt the ambiance in the room of that this person really gets it. Gets it. Another person that I enjoyed having on the program was Andrew.
Andrew Johnstone.
That runs Spurrier's, the general manager here.
Oh, yeah.
Just an amazing guy. Work ethic I see him here at all times. Rolls up his sleeves. Not a
Gets
finger
back
pointer.
there and gets dirty every single day.
Yeah. Not a finger pointer, like get that
No.
done, get that done. It's like, come on, let's do this.
Probably also one of the most level-headed, unbiased managers that I've ever met in my life.
Wow.
He truly, and I mean,
What makes you say that?
I mean, as the IT manager here, there have been there were a few times maybe I needed to review security footage or something like that. Anytime that I've needed to, do something like that and then talk to him afterwards, he never points fingers. He never assumes anything. He's very fair and gets all sides of every issue and doesn't let his own personal opinions come out at all. And I think that is crucially important for an employer to have.
Just the facts.
Yes.
Yeah.
All you need are the facts. The employees don't need to know your opinion.
The facts are, that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what happened.
So, if hypothetical situation, so-and-so is accused of, let's say, stealing something. I mean, he wouldn't make assumptions. He wouldn't be like, oh, I trust this person, but I don't trust the person they're accusing. It's, let's look at the security camera footage and see what we can physically see here.
Here's your truth.
Yep.
Here's this person's truth. And let's talk about the real truth.
Exactly.
Let's talk about the factual truth. So that's interesting. Yeah. Andrew's he was a great guest too. I really enjoyed having him on here.
He was in Panama City, actually, during Hurricane Michael. Well, we were actually both in Panama City, didn't know each other. And Hurricane Michael came through, and he led Mission Barbecue through all of that. I mean, 2 weeks without power or water. And he's fed a whole community. It was amazing.
Amazing. Yeah. It's been fun talking to you.
It has been fun. I honestly don't know how an hour has already passed, but
it is.
It flies, apparently.
And recalling, so somebody might be going like, well, I thought this program was about leadership. It is.
It is.
I mean, we're just talking about, we don't seek out big time leaders, the Bill Gates of that. Mm-hmm. We look for the little nuances of people that are making an impact on somebody's life on a local basis. And And that's where we come from. So I appreciate you being here, Evan. And next week, we'll be working on a new guest, and you'll be back in the saddle across the way.
Back in the command chair.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Remember, jacksonville.dalecarnegie.com. Come sign up for the next class here in Gainesville.
It is definitely worth it. Sign up.
Coming to you live from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, this has been Motivation U, the podcast.